Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. The Professional Service Group of Mercer County is a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any career transition. And for you, it may be that your company has made their own decision in staffing and it affected you. That happened to me twice in my career. Or maybe you're taking your own career in your own hands and looking to reposition yourself at another company. Alex had just told us that's a very common practice right now. There's a lot of activity that way. Or maybe you took some personal time for a while to take care of a family member or other personal need and you're getting yourself back into the job market. We are here to help you be more efficient and effective in your own job search. And of course, in addition to welcoming you, we like to say happy Aloha Friday. So certainly, you know, if you know me now for all these years, I do like to wear Hawaiian shirts, Aloha shirts on a Friday. And this is actually my new Hawaiian shirt. I just bought this last week. JCPenney had a big sale. They delivered it to the store for free, so that worked out well. So I got myself new. This is made from genuine imitation silk, which basically is organic rayon. That's what that is. And so, but I'm wearing my brand new shirt on behalf of Ellen showing up today. And in addition to being Aloha Friday, today is National Shawarma Day. If you're not familiar with shawarma, it's actually a very delicious Middle Eastern rotisserie way of cooking meat, almost like the Middle Eastern version of a Greek gyro. And so I enjoy shawarma. I enjoy Middle Eastern food. One thing I do miss about us not being in Princeton, about a block away from the library, is Mamoun's, which is a Middle Eastern restaurant, and they do serve shawarma sandwiches and platters. So I certainly miss that. Oops. There we go. And so we get to celebrate Shawarma Day. So if you find yourself in Princeton, you may want to go on Witherspoon Street and visit Mamoun's. For PSG of Mercer County, we do have a lot of resources for you. We do have our LinkedIn group. Our LinkedIn group, it's a little bit of a private group. It's not a hidden group, but a little bit private in that when you find our group, it is called PSG of Mercer County. If you are new to our group, you click the join button and you are put in pending status. And we check about once a week to see people who have requested to join. And the reason why pending status is what we do is we then go through our attendance lists that we have to make sure that when you do request to join, you've been to at least one of our meetings, whether it was in person or virtual. And the reason why is we want only people in our LinkedIn group who are serious job seekers and have been to our group here at least once. And so our group is over 1,690 members strong, all people who have been through our program at least once. And members do share a lot of useful information. It becomes certainly very helpful. So, oops, just going to mute one person. There we go. And so, you know, you may get a nice email from a recruiter who you don't know about a terrific position that doesn't mean anything to you and not in your area, but you know it's a good position. You know what? Copy the content of that email and paste it into our LinkedIn group. You'll be sharing with other job seekers. It may be able to help them. And the other thing, as long as you're active in LinkedIn, and participating in groups is a great way to be active, LinkedIn says, oh, you're an active user, you may come up a little bit higher in search results. And so you do want to certainly be active on LinkedIn, and that's a very easy way to do so by being active in LinkedIn groups. Or maybe there's an article you read that's of interest. So you just post something, here's an interesting article, and post the link for that, or copy and paste it, and that should be fine. So also, being a member of any LinkedIn group, of course, ours, all the members of the LinkedIn group are virtually first-degree connections. So even if you don't have 1,694 connections yet, by linking to or becoming a member of our LinkedIn group, you now have up to 1,694 additional LinkedIn members that you can reach out to through the group. Second and third-degree members on free LinkedIn, you cannot email them in LinkedIn, but you can through a group. So that's helpful. We do have our website, of course. It is also called PSG of Mercer County. It's psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. It is over 120 web pages of content. It's a lot of information. We do have a menu along the top. One of the menu items is called resources. Right now we have links and icons to 44 different resources, all for job seekers and career resources. We have links to 15 different networking groups. That's certainly not as robust as Alex Freund's networking list, but they're sort of quote unquote friends of the PSG group. So they are there as well. We have 27 other career resources, which include state agencies, career coaches, and others that have been friends. And we also have a link to a personal wellness site. We added that once COVID started, and a link to a mental health site. And so not implying at all that any of you have any sort of personal wellness or mental health issue at all, but if you feel any sort of challenge, or if there's anyone you know that may have some sort of challenge along that way, don't know where is a good place to start, you might try looking at those resources that we have. So we're trying to be as helpful to everybody as possible. So just before I introduce Ellen, I want to just go over our ground rules once again, and that is that please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation. You can, of course, unmute when you have a question, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but we're just trying to keep any accidental background noise. Maybe your neighbor has, running the lawn tractor or a leaf blower, or the garbage truck is picking up and squeaky, just trying to keep that from coming through. So just keep it on mute during the presentation, or maybe you're typing an email to someone. Of course, I don't know why you wouldn't pay attention to the meeting, but just in case that happens. And also for questions, we will be using chat for questions. And so in chat, it's that icon on the upper right. It's a circular icon with a little tab at the bottom. And what you'll do is you will type the word question. If that's all you type, and I'll look for it, then I will know that you have a question. It's like digitally raising your hand, and we will call on you. And you can then, at that point, when we call on you, unmute. And when we unmute, you will then be able to speak with Ellen and ask her a question. Ellen in a moment will share her screen. And then the other way, if you don't want to actually unmute for any reason, that's fine. You could type the word question followed by the text of your question, and I will read it to you on your for you on your behalf. And so that's what we have for our ground rules. And so I think we are all set. And I'm just very pleased on behalf of PSG of Mercer County to welcome back Ellen Wagner. Ellen Wagner, trained as a hotel manager, studied business administration and economics and psychology at the University of Applied Sciences West Coast Heide in Germany. In her diploma thesis, she wrote about the effects of demographic change on human resource management in the hotel industry. She worked in product management and hotel contracting at DER Touristic from 2008 to 2019. As a freelance lecturer, she wrote the following books: Sustainable Corporate Management, Sustainable Human Resources Management, and Seniors in Tourism. I like that one. She has worked in Germany, England, Spain, Tunisia, Greece, and the United States. In 2019, she moved to Princeton with her family and founded her company, Cross Cultural Bridges, Wagner Coaching LLC, where she offers workshops on the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and helps organizations and individuals overcome internal and external barriers. PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome back Coach Ellen Wagner.
And I may unmute my microphone now. I can speak. Yay!
Yes, only unmute if you're going to ask yourself a question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this nice introduction, David. And thank you for everyone for appearing this morning. I hope you're well. And yeah, I am glad if you switch on your camera so I can see you, but it's also okay if you don't have your camera on, which is perfectly fine. I hope that today we will be able to communicate through the chat so that I will know what you think, because as much as I like myself hearing to speak and talking, it's much better to have an interaction today because I'm here for you and not for myself. So I'm going to share my screen, and you are supposed to see my PowerPoint slide, which I prepared for you. So just give me a little sign if you're able to see it. Thank you,
Yes, we
David.
do.
And yeah, so we're here today to talk about our inner voices. I don't know if you ever thought about your inner voices, because it might be that it doesn't happen very conscious, but rather unconscious. And maybe through today's session, we will be able to make the unconscious more conscious. And in order to do that, or the goal should be to take over a little bit more control. That's why I call the session Taking the Lead. This should be the goal. So what are we going to do in the next hour and a little bit more? We're right in the intro where I let you know a little bit more about myself, where I come from, and then I want to explain what coaching is all about, because today we are going to use 2 coaching tools that I'm using in my coaching practice or in workshops. When I facilitate, I'm taking over the role of the person that supports you find your own solution, because there is no one size fits all. And this is what we're going to do today. It's coaching. And I want to that you think about or reflect about one current challenge or challenges that you might have. And then we're going to talk about the Iceberg Model. You might have heard about the Iceberg Model before in different contexts, and we're going to talk about that. Then we have 2 exercise, or there are even more exercise. I'm not going to go too deep into that. Just lean back, relax. If you want, you can grab a pen and a piece of paper to participate, because you can, if you want, be very active today and work with me. So let's start. Yeah, who am I? David already told you about my professional background. I would call myself diversity, equity, and inclusion expert with a focus on anti-Black racism and LGBTQ topics. Why? Well, I am a transracial adoptee, so I grew up with white parents, so racism is a huge thing, part of my life. And I'm also married to my wife, so I'm in a same-sex marriage, which gives me a unique perspective on life. And this is what I share also in my workshops, and that's why I'm also concerned about that. Yeah, I have a lot of experience at being a lecturer and author, most of the time in Germany. So bear with me if I don't use the correct words. I'm not a native speaker. My first language is English. I speak also a little bit of French and Spanish, but I really feel comfortable speaking English. Yeah, I have over 10 years in corporate Germany. I lived in 6 different countries, and blah, blah, blah. You heard that before. So let's just skip that and dive right into it. So maybe you can use the chat, so I know that you are able to find the chat here, and just type in a plus if you ever had contact with coaching, or you had a coach, or you might be a coach, and a minus if you never heard about coaching or you never had a personal coaching. So I can see what you write. And thank you, David. Many Germans speak English. That's true. But I found out also the other way around. There are a lot of people who are able to speak German. Okay, there's even a double plus. I don't know what that means, but I think this person knows coaching. So my definition about coaching is that, well, I have a training in systemic coaching. This is what we call it in Germany. So if you would have this baby mobile and you would touch one part, the whole system or the whole mobile is going to move. And the way that I got trained to do coaching is in a systemic way. So we have our inner system, our inner voices, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. We have the, let's say, smaller system with our partners maybe, and then the bigger system, our family system, and then the even bigger system might be at work, depending on how huge the corporation is or the team that you might work with or you used to work with. And then there is even the bigger system, the street that you're living in, the town, the world. So your actions or the actions of other people have an effect on the system. And sometimes we might be able to influence the system, and sometimes we might not be able to influence that. And today we want to find out why. Why is that so? So it's already time for you to get active. So pick any kind of challenge that you might have. It can be small, something like, my mug of coffee is empty. What can I do? Nobody is at home to bring me a coffee. And it can be a bigger challenge, and you don't have to share the challenge with the others, but you can. So you could finish the sentence, my biggest challenge this time is, or something like, I wish I would be able to. And if you like, you can share your challenge in the chat. You can even unmute yourself and say something. But I guess some of you are still thinking, right, about a challenge. You might not expect me to ask that kind of question.
While we're waiting, you should sing the Jeopardy music.
What am I supposed to sing?
Oh, the theme song from Jeopardy. You know, they play a little theme song while they're
Ding,
trying to
ding,
answer the question.
ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding,
There you go.
ding, 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 ding. If you want me to stop, just type in something in the chat so I can talk about that. Ding,
Uh-oh.
ding, 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 ding. I think somebody is talking, but you're on mute. Is that on purpose? John Samson? Or
He's
you're just
singing
talking to
along.
yourself?
He's singing along with you.
Okay. Okay, it might be that in this room there are no challenges, which is superb. But then I'm going to finish this session very soon. Okay, here we go. I want to be able to talk to anyone and always know what to say. Okay, yeah, I feel you, Nancy. I was there. Question, Ellen. There is a lot of confusion out there between the terms career coach, career counselor, career consultant, mentor, and possibly others. Can you shed some light on this? I will do that. And another challenge, matching ideal job with available job. Okay, yeah, that's a huge challenge. And the terms coach, I think also in the United States, just like in Germany, they are not protected terms. So everybody could call themselves coach, which is a huge problem. But there are organizations like the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, where I am a member, and people can also be certified. So if you are looking for a coach, it might be useful to see any kind of certification if you want that. I would like to have that. But there are also people out there who don't have a certification and they coach and they might be brilliant. Well, it's always like that in life. So the distinction between career coach, career counselor, I think it's just the method that they use. So coaching, like I said, I'm helping you finding the right solution. I'm not saying, oh, Nancy, I see a wonderful background, so I would suggest that you would go somewhere and do this. No, I would ask the right question so that you find out yourself what is best for you, because I assume that you're the expert for yourself. A career counselor or consultant, on the other hand, would give you a solution. So as a coach, if you would ask me, where's the toilet? I would ask you, well, what do you think where it is? And if you go to a counselor or a consultant, you ask the way to the toilet, and the person would say, you exit here, straight ahead, first door on the left. So you get a very concrete answer and an advice from somebody who's very experienced in a topic. And a mentor, I'm also a mentor for a volunteer organization in Germany. So I accompany one woman over 1 year who is well, maybe thinking about being an entrepreneur like me, or just needs any kind of advice from somebody who has experience in a certain field. So when we meet, we just exchange our experiences, not really in a consultant way, like super professional, but just more like a conversation. So what is it that you need? Oh, you want to ask for a raise? Okay, the last time I did it that way. Does that make it clear, Alex?
Yes, Alan, I think you gave a very good description, but keep continue.
Okay.
I would chime in later on at the end.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the question. So if you take your challenge, and I just gonna check. Yeah, I want to be able to talk to anyone, matching ideal job with an available job. These are challenges that are already very positive, right? You look out for something positive that will help you or advance your life or optimize your life. Sometimes when we think about a challenge, we think about something like this. I want to eat less chocolate. And what happens if you write this down on a piece of paper? I want to eat less chocolate. The only thing you can see this day is chocolate everywhere. So this is a little bit like the self-fulfilling prophecy. So to take control over focusing on your challenge is to find a positive challenge. Like, I want to eat more healthy snacks, right? So if you wrote down your challenge and it's focusing on something that you need to avoid or something that you don't like or you want to do less, try to reframe your challenge and think about what is it that you want to achieve. And this way, it's going to be easier for you to reach. It is not easy to do this, but it will be easier. Okay, so that would be your first step. And now let's just talk a little bit about the Iceberg model. And you see this model in so many different ways. The iceberg meaning there's 20% on the surface and 80% below. And there has been an Italian guy called Pareto. And maybe you heard about the Pareto relation, 80-20. Sometimes we say, like, for most of the task at the day, I spend 80% for a 20% outcome. Well, there are so many relations with this 80-20. And here with the iceberg, it says that 20% of what you see of a person is not everything that the person is about, because there are things that are below the surface. So what you would see here, if you look at me, maybe you would see a Black woman that has a funny accent. Well, but there is so much more that you don't see, which is below the surface. And these might be my sexual orientation, or that I have white parents and other things that shaped my life. So visible are the things, and we're most of the time very conscious of that, the actions that we do, the words that we choose, the body language, like you see me using a lot of my hands. And what is more invisible is more unconscious, like the thoughts that we have, the emotions that we have. The emotions might come to the surface, but not really every time, and you cannot tell by some people because they might have a poker face. Objectives, experiences, intentions that might lay really deep on the ground of the iceberg. And why am I telling you about the iceberg? Well, when we want to be successful, it's all about the actions, the words, and the body language, because this is what the people actually see. What the people don't see are the unconscious things that are going on with us, the thoughts. And we will have maybe, and hopefully today, a little influence on our thoughts, because this will shape the way how we behave, how we take action, and how we speak, and how our body language is. And you might know this from little children when they are afraid, or even if you have a pet, like a cat. or a dog, they would probably try to hide themselves, make them really small if they are sad or afraid, right? You would be really small. And if you're confident, you stand there like this, and maybe really powerful, you have a different voice, and maybe you know this from situations where you go into an interview and you feel not 100% prepared, or not that you fit to the job description 100%. Sometimes people might feel that through the way of your body posture, your body language, the way you speak. And so our thoughts have a huge influence on the parts that are visible. And we want to work on that today. And one thing that I really like is to find a slogan for yourself. So regarding your challenges, what could be a good slogan? Something that people use in marketing. And do you know strong slogans from US American brands out there? I don't know too many brands. But what are good slogans that come up to your mind if you think about some brands out there? What are good slogans? What are the slogans that you might like or not like? Nike, just do it. Yeah, I like that a lot. What is the slogan of Walmart? M&M good? I don't know this one, I think.
How about Breakfast of Champions?
Ooh, what is that?
Wheaties, come on.
Oh, you see, I have a lot of work to do. I'm here only since 2.5 years, and there has been a pandemic, so I'm still integrating. Yeah, and the thing with slogans, okay, Frosted Flakes, great, is that if you hear them many times over and over again, you start to believe it. So I work with slogans. I have Post-its here. Something like, I don't know if you can see it, forgive yourself. And a quote by Maya Angelou, you are enough. I have even more. Oops. Where is it here? And it says, stop comparing. So I remind myself of that, to be less stressed, to be more successful in what I do. So maybe one homework would be, how could you put your slogan, your challenge into a slogan? And if I just scroll back and take a look at Nancy's challenge, I want to be able to talk to anyone always and always know what to say. What kind of slogan could you have? Something like, I love to speak to people and get to know them, or I'd love to have small talk, or something like that, you know? Okay, let's jump into an exercise, but do you have any questions so far? Silence. So I'm counting like 22, 23, 25, and if nobody's saying anything, I just keep going. But you know, you can always take your time and.
Hey, Ellen.
Yes.
This is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. Going back to your previous point, is it important to frame your slogans positively?
What do you think?
Well, I think so, of course, but it's not a bad slogan would be "Don't eat more." I don't eat chocolate. You know.
Exactly. And you feel it already when you say it out loud, that it has an influence. It doesn't feel nice. It feels like something that your parents would tell you, right? A
Right.
negative slogan. So of course, this positivity is important. Yes.
And is a slogan for yourself, or
Yes.
it's something for other people?
As you wish. I have kind of slogans that I might use in my pitch when I introduce myself to other people, corporations that might be potential customers. I might use it for myself to cheer myself on.
Okay.
The thing is to just repeat what you want to achieve, whatever it is, and just speaking louder the next time. It took me a very long time to gain authority in my lectures, I was training hotel managers in hotel sales and other business administration topics. And sometimes there were hotel managers who were maybe 30 years older than me, and I needed to find my voice and not to be intimidated. They came to the class because they wanted to learn something. So I was the expert in this moment, but I was kind of young when I started out with that job. So I needed to write down for myself that I am good, I'm enough, I'm an expert in this, and you need to remind yourself either it's people in your life who tell you and give you feedback, or you need to give your feedback to yourself. The funny thing is that sometimes the subconscious cannot differ between stuff that you experienced and stuff that you just make up. And you might know people who, I think it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, people who think they're super great, but they're actually not. That would be the one extreme. And the other extreme might be the imposter syndrome, that you feel that you're faking it and you're not an expert. This is not where I want to go today. It's just about gaining a little self-confidence, okay? So the concept of the inner critic is, okay, there comes up another question. Your slogan seems more like mantras. Yes, yes, than a personal brand. Maybe all three are different. Can you speak to that? Yeah, I think a mantra is something that you say over and over again. And I don't know if there is actually a difference between the terms. Like I said before, I'm not a native speaker, so I might not even take the right words. Maybe I should talk about finding your own mantra. And for me, finding my personal brand took me a very long time to find my brand for my company. But it aligns very strongly with my values that I have. So they are probably all connected, but yes, you're right, Charlotte Ann, it might not be the same. So the concept of the inner critic comes from a German psychologist, Schulz von Thun, and he talks about the inner critic. So we might have several voices in our head who are our critics, who got something to say to us when we try to make a decision. And David put a little picture with the devil and an angel on the shoulder. And maybe you can imagine when you are making a decision, oh, should I buy these trousers? They're really beautiful. And then you hear something, no, you have already 10 trousers at home. You don't need another one. And the other voice says, oh, but it was a long time ago that you bought something beautiful for yourself. And then these two voices are like discussing, and you're like, oh no, what shall I do? And you might end up following the voice that you don't want to follow. And then you might be angry, but you cannot overcome this and do what you actually want to do. So these inner voices have a huge influence on our actions. It's very subconscious. Normally we don't even hear this dialogue very clear, but let's try to make this dialogue clear today. So what does your inner voice say? And what are maybe sentences that you hear from your inner critic? You can think about any kind of situation in your life where you want to make a decision. What kind of voices do you hear? You can also think about your concrete challenge and think about the voices that you hear.
Oh, and excuse me, Ellen. There is a question from Charlotte Ann. I stepped away for a moment. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Yes, I answered it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I hope so, Charlotte Ann. Otherwise, you just tell me. So think about your challenge. Think about any kind of situation when you heard a voice telling you some critique, something that you don't want to hear, or that leads you to make another decision. Maybe something like, I'm not good enough. I'm not an expert in this topic. I shouldn't raise my voice. And it could be something that our parents maybe told us, but we don't agree with that. Well, let's just see if you get there when we go through the challenge or this exercise about the inner voices. So think about your challenge. And you probably wrote down something. If not, now's the time to do so. And then think about the voice that is standing in your way and which is the loudest. And that might be the reason why you don't do what you want to do. And Nancy, since you shared your challenge, would you like to share with the group why you don't do what you want to do, why you don't speak to anyone, or why it feels so hard? Is there any voice talking to you?
I guess the voice says, well, you won't know what to say, only because I am shy and I have had work. I'm talking to somebody, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what can we say? And then there's just silence.
Mm-hmm. So if I would talk to your voice now, I would say, well, Nancy is not shy. She just spoke up in the group in front of people that she probably not know all of them. So yes, but the voice would probably say something, you're too shy. You don't know what to say. Should better not talk to the person. The person is probably not interested talking with you. Like all these kind of stuff that keeps you from doing what you're planning to do. And now comes a part where you can get a little creative, and it might be a little bit funny, but believe me, it's gonna work. If this voice that you just heard would be a persona, it could be fictive or real, what would it look like and what would it wear? What are special characteristics? And write it down. You can also share it in the chat. And to give you a little idea what it could look like, when I was a single mom, and I was also working, and I always had trouble with time management in the morning, getting my daughter ready. There was this voice in my head telling me that I should pick up the laundry and put something in the dishwasher and just do something, just quickly, just tidy up. And it says something like, what should the other people think if they come over and see this mess? So this voice was critiquing me for the way I was handling my own household. And when I visualized this voice, it was a little fictive character, actually from a German ad. So I think you might not know this, but it was really getting on my nerve. It was running around my feet. I was visualizing this, tapping with a foot on the ground, standing there looking at me like, talk, talk, talk. Ellen, Ellen, you have to tidy up this. And did you see that? So it was really stressing me out, this voice, because I wanted to get ready for work, but I felt the need to tidy up and get things done. So if you would think about this inner voice that is critiquing you, what persona would it have? Can you imagine? In my coaching sessions, once I had a client and she had a huge cloud hanging over her head, talking from above. Sometimes it's a person that is standing behind you, being much taller than you are, and sometimes these voices or these personas are even touching you or holding you. One time there was a persona sitting on the back of a client, which is kind of heavy to carry this persona around. So I'm just checking the chat. Ellen, the inner voice. Voices talk in our head 24/7, even in our dreams. Not always we remember it in the morning. The inner voice are in context of what is going on. Yes, yes. So can you imagine what the voice would look like if it would be a person? Wow, many pop into my head. An old boss nicknamed Little Hitler. Wow, okay, I know Hitler. Sometimes it's a witch pointed with pointed hat and warty nose. Oh wow. Yeah. So just try to describe this voice and give this voice a body. And while you do this, just be very precise. You can even describe the clothes the persona is wearing, just to have a picture in front of your inner eyes. And if you got there, you can also find a name for this inner voice, which makes it much easier to address it. So in Andreas' case, it would be Little Hitler or the witch. George C. Scott in the movie Patton, I don't know this one, in uniform with a riding crop and helmet. In the original size, Bill, or smaller, or where would the voice be? Think about that. Just hold that thought for a moment. So what would you, towering over me? Yeah, and it says so much already about the voice. It's not very comfortable, right? To have somebody towering over you. What would you say? What would the voice say to you when you think about your challenge? Where would you stand? So if we would be here in person and I would talk with Bill about George C. Scott, I would ask Bill really to stand up and to imagine where this voice is standing now and what it would actually say. Bill, can you maybe share with the group what George C. Scott would tell you? Maybe one sentence? You can think about your challenge and what would George say to you? Your skills are out of date and worthless. Wow, that's hard. And then you would ask yourself, how does that make you feel? Although this is not my inner voice, Bill, but I feel already comfortable imagining this. I don't even know the person, but it makes me feel very uncomfortable. So what does this voice makes you feel? How do you feel when the voice says something to you like that? And maybe you can just write it down.
I feel pretty convinced, not that he's kind of right in some ways, that some of my skills are out of date and some of them are worthless for, as I try to attain employment, it's.
You believe it, right?
Yeah, you start to believe it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially when you hear it over and over again.
Right.
And you might not hear this very consciously. Sometimes when we have to make a decision, we don't even think about that. But this is really the reason, this inner critique, this voice that comes up. And can you think about why this voice, and in this case, Scott, is saying something to you like this? Why is the voice saying that your skills are out of date and worthless?
I think it has a lot to do with like my past history. I worked for a pretty big company, and a lot of their IT systems were developed within the company itself. So instead of using let's say a customer service platform from SAP or Microsoft or something like that, it was an IBM based program that was basically developed with IBM and the company I work for to serve our purposes. And you know, if you go and you look for a job right now, you know, there's a lot of candidates should be able to use such and such a software package. And I've used something similar to it, but I've never
Yes.
used that actual package. So it's like, I can see where my critic is kind of correct and also kind of wrong.
Because it's not really helping you
Right,
advancing, right?
right.
So, but I mean, the consequence, if this voice is coming up, would be you would not apply for a job. You would not ask for a certain role, right?
Right.
Why is the voice saying that?
Well, I guess a voice is saying it because there's a part of me that thinks it's true too.
Yes. And could it be that the voice wants to prevent you from failure, or that people laugh at you, or that you would lose the job, or I don't know, what could be a consequence? Why is this voice saying this to you? Because the voice is very successful, right? If you believe it.
Yeah, it's pretty successful. I would say fear of failure would be probably top on my list. I you know, obviously I don't want to fail at anything, and you know, I don't want to fail publicly, especially. So
Yes.
yeah, fear of failure would be the top thing.
Yeah. So if you think about it, the voice really tries to protect you from this situation, right?
Right. But at the same time, you know, I need to move on and somehow get employed. So
yes, and
you
this
know, I have
might
to
be
put the book. I have to silence the voice, basically.
yes, and maybe you heard about microaggressions or discrimination. If some people say something and they have good intention, but the impact is different, this might be the case here. The intention is just good, you know, I want to protect you, that nothing bad happens to you. And maybe we hear even our parents saying something like that. But the impact that this voice has with this suggestion is not good for you, not where you are now. Maybe in another situation, but not now, right?
Right.
So again, when you feel, or when you now understand where the voice is coming from, how does that make you feel? Are you even more angry? Are you a little bit relieved that you know that the intention is good?
I wouldn't say relieved. I wouldn't say angry. Just right now, I'm just it. I'll tell you, it right now it is what it is. And you know, if I could eliminate this voice or quiet this voice, I'd like to do that.
Yes. So the last question on the slide here, what would you like to reply? So this voice is coming up. You would maybe turn around really to imagine, to talk to the voice, and what would you like to reply? What is it that you like to say?
In all honesty,
Yes, in all honesty.
go to hell.
Yes. Good. The question is, why is it so hard for you to say this to the voice when it appears?
Because I think the voice's argument in some ways has some fact to it.
Yeah, makes you doubt, right? Makes you hesitate.
Right.
So if you think about maybe other voices in your head, you can even think about a person in real life that could support you in this situation. So now here you are, you want to make this decision, the voice comes up, George comes up and tells you that your skills are out of date and worthless. And you would say, go to hell, and the voice is still there because it can feel, Bill is not really believing this, that I should go to hell, because he knows it's a little bit true. Who could you get on the scene to support you? Because another voice or another person knows this is not true.
I'm sure there's former coworkers that I could talk to.
A coworker, you said?
Yeah, it's like a former coworker who, you know, they know me from the time where I used to work at that company, and you know, they know how the quality of my work and all that other stuff. So yeah, a former coworker I could call.
And do you have a name of the coworker?
Yeah, oh yeah, I have a name and a phone number and everything.
Yes. So in the situation, and is that how do I pronounce your name correctly? Is it Edith or Edith Black? You wanted to see the slide again? I would skip to the next slide, and I'm going to send the slide deck also to David, so you can share with the group, okay? So now you think about your coworker, right? And you can think about a real person to bring on the scene, but you can also think about a different voice in your head that you have, right? And maybe you can imagine in these kind of tough situations that there is another voice that is supporting you, that is cheering you on, that says, boo, yeah, go to hell. Bill is absolutely right, because he knows better and he should really try. So you can think about a fictive person or voice, but you can also think about this very concrete coworker that you have in mind. And then think about a name. Okay, you have a name in this case. And what would your coworker explicitly say to you in this situation?
If I was thinking about this guy, his take would be, listen, you've learned processes and products in the past. This is just another process and product you would have to learn. It's not a big deal for you. You've been doing it all your life.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about what your negative voice is telling you. You'll be able to get through it.
How does that make you feel when you hear that?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it makes me feel better, of course, because I know it to be true. I know I've done it in the past, so on and so forth. But I guess my problem would be, how do I convey that to a prospective employer? So if a prospective employer says, you know, the candidate needs these skills, and one of those skills is a software program that I don't know, how can I convey to that prospective employer, hey, I can learn this, I've done it in the past, so on and so forth?
I think, and if you ask me for an advice, you need training in this. You need to convince yourself that your skills are up to date and that you can catch up and that you can learn this new software or programming, whatever it is. And in order to convince the other person, this inner voice, your coworker, can support you, giving you the right arguments, right? Just like the other inner critic is critiquing you, saying, hey, this is not working, the other person can support you. And if you think about the inner voice or the inner critic really wants to protect you from failure or from, how is it called, this word? Humanization? How is it called? That others, that you will humiliate yourself? I don't know the word now.
Yourself. Yeah,
Humiliate yourself, right?
You got
so
it.
this,
Yep.
this voice got a very good intention, but it's just not good for you because it has a very negative influence on you. How would you like to reply to your inner critic now that you know all this? What would you say to George? Would you might start thinking, George, well, thank you that you're here. I know that you just want to warn me, and I get it, but it's just not the time right now, because I want to focus on this conversation I have, and I really believe in myself, and I can do it. So thank you, but no. Could you imagine to say something like that?
Yeah, I guess I could. That could be an option.
And if you would, yes. And do you think that George would leave the scene and will go away?
That I don't know.
Mm.
I think that there's always going to be self-doubt about about yourself when it comes to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There's always like, so, all right, let me put it to you this way. When I worked at my former employer, I was supposed to be like the top-notch guy in this one area of the business. Okay, fine. But the area of the business was, this one area was like, I don't know, maybe 40% of the business. That means that I didn't know much about the other 60% of the business at the same time. So like, if you took me out of my spot where I was supposed to be the main man in the country when it came to this area and put me in a different spot, not that it wouldn't be that I was blind and I didn't know what I was doing, but I sure wasn't the smartest guy in the world when it came, or in the country when it came to these other areas. So there's always going to be some self-doubt. I don't care what the situation is. There's always going to be some self-doubt.
Yes.
I don't think Patton ever goes away. Just Patton is always there in some way, form, or another. He's always there.
Yeah.
But my goal is just to quiet him down a bit so I can move on, right?
Exactly. So it's good for you to have a goal. I want to just quiet him down, and he shouldn't go away. Maybe that's okay for you, that he can stay. In my coaching sessions, I had cases where that was like an old grandmother persona who has a strong connection with the own mother, saying these kind of mantras that were not healthy for the person. So that person says, go to a rocking chair on the porch and relax and have a tea. And for this moment, my coaching client was able to get the voice out of the scene to focus on what they wanted to focus on. So it might be a way, and I don't know this character, George C. Scott, in a uniform, but maybe you can send George C. Scott to a meeting. Well, you have an important meeting, you need to talk with people, or I don't know what George C. Scott likes to do in the free time. It might be relaxing. I don't know. I even had clients that send their persona to play PlayStation or do whatever. So think about something where you can send this person that it steps back maybe, or sit down at least, and not towering over you, just to quiet down this voice. But it might be a start to acknowledge that this inner voice just cares about you, just wants to protect you, because there is somewhere a good reason to do that, but it might not be the right time to do that. And yes, you are absolutely right that there will always be doubt, but somehow, and in some situations, we need to take control. We need to overcome this inner critic, otherwise we will probably be paralyzed and not move on. So can you imagine a gesture that supports your statement? First, you said something like go to hell. I don't know how you would embody that, but depending on the voice, if it's like a cloud, people just pushed it aside. Sometimes people just wave because they're a little bit more friendly. I used to kick that little persona that was running around my feet. It could take it. It didn't hurt the persona. And think about a gesture that supports your statement. When you send this voice away, or you said, what did you say? You want the voice to quiet down? you could also think about this, like, and if you have this, and you might know this, that gestures support your emotions or your actions, right? So if you sit like this, you will probably not convince other people that you're very confident. But if you would speak like that, it will help, right? And I even have my hands like this. So what could be a gesture to send this voice away? Yeah, and sometimes in my coaching sessions, I also advise to have a little micro gesture. Just imagine you are in an interview, somebody's asking you something, and you cannot say, go to hell, yeah, right? You cannot do this huge gesture, or you cannot say something like, shh. People will be looking like, what is going on? So maybe you can think about a micro gesture, something very, very tiny that nobody will recognize, something like just touch your lips for a second, if it wouldn't be Corona, but something that helps you support what you just wanted to say. And then the question would be, how would you feel now? Okay, that was it. And
So
in a coaching, yes?
the thing about George Patton, the actual George Patton, he was a U.S. general in World War II, and he was very controversial. And he got himself into a lot of trouble. He was a brilliant general, but he got himself into a lot of trouble for doing some questionable things at times. And there was one time, I forget what it was. He actually struck a soldier because he felt the soldier was a coward. The soldier was in a hospital and basically had what we call PTSD, or what they used to call shell shock. And he felt that this soldier was sitting among men who had been wounded in battle and didn't deserve to sit there with them.
Oh.
And basically, he told the doctor, I don't want any cowards in this hospital with these honorable men, and so on and so forth. And he struck the soldier, and I guess word got back to the supreme commander of the army at the time, which was Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Eisenhower got furious at him and demoted him. So I guess that is something that I could say to General Patton, is that, Ike wants to talk to you, or something like that. I don't know.
Exactly. Or I know Eisenhower personally. It could be even Eisenhower's voice or a persona that you bring on the scene. It's an authority, right? I don't know much about military, but I think
True,
Heracles
and
plays a huge role.
he was the supreme commander of all Allied forces in Europe, and so he had British generals reporting to him, and American generals, Canadian generals, etc. And he would have been Patton's superior at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have a very strong picture. You might even have a scene. You might be standing on a field. You might even see the uniform, and that makes it much easier to address, because you can have this inner dialogue and say, hey, George, really not now. You can address it to somewhere. And before, you might have had this voice, but you were angry as soon as it appears. Now you might just be able to laugh about it, saying like, I know where you come from, but it's not your time right now. I can handle it. I'm good at that. And then comes in the mantra maybe, or your slogan, where you say, no, I can learn, and I can, and my skills are not out of date. Right? So that's a very powerful tool, and sometimes it takes 1.5 hours when I'm working with people. So they are actually standing up, they're getting themselves in the position. I let them speak out of the other persona, and it gets really emotional, because sometimes you dig so deep that you go back to times, it got a lot to do with family members, where people who really love you, who just really want the best for you, say things to you that might be really harmful. Something like, you have to stay strong, or boys shouldn't cry. These very simple sentences can have a huge impact on certain individuals, not all of them, but what maybe worked for my mother is not working for me because I'm living a different life. So I'm just trying to look at the chat. There were quite a few comments. Ellen said inner voices can be very harmful and damaging if, say, a negative thought comes back again and again. The question is, how do you suppress or eliminate such negative voices? Yeah, in the way that you identify the voice, that you understand where the voice is coming from. What is the motive? Why is this voice saying this to you? For me, it's always a relief to know. I'm still angry, but it's a relief that I know the intention is good, like so many times. And then I get some other cheerleaders on the spot, some other voices that help me. Okay, and I see some strategies go away, you're not relevant anymore. Yes. Can you show, yeah, the last slide did that. Say, okay, what skills are needed and what classes do you recommend for me to increase my skills? And that is reframing, right? This sentence of my skills are not up to date to, okay, what can I do? That's a positive goal. Reframe, what are your strong points in your specialty? Nice. I'd give the voice the finger, also very nice. And the micro gesture in this way would be maybe something behind your other hand, right? Because you cannot show the finger in front of other people. And then there is some resource that Ann Victor shared. Thank you for that. We are as young as we feel. Okay, what happened here? And yeah, so yeah, just try to go through these steps as much or as deep as you wish, and try to train this in the future. So when the voice comes up, you're prepared to react. Any further questions to this tool or to, yeah, this coaching tool? Or would anyone else like to share if you were successful finding a strategy for yourself to quiet an inner critic?
Hey, Ellen, this is there a way to build a positive voice, like in response to George C. Scott? How would you have something that responds to George?
Like Eisenhower? Or like the coworker, you mean?
Well, it's something that even it is for yourself, like, well, I am taking classes to get up to speed. Go away, you know. Just having a positive, developing the angel that sits on your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe if you use the word angel, is there a person in your life, a person that you have seen in your life on media that is angelic for you, where you would look up to and where you would think this person has the right mindset for me to support me in difficult situations?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because I have, I don't know if you know Marsha P. Johnson. That was a transgender Black woman who threw the first stone at Stonewall. So for me, this act was super fearless, and Marsha is a role model for me. I have several role models, and depending on the situation, I bring on role models to the scene. This could be a person in your family, this could be your partner, this could be your neighbor, this could be David, it could be anyone who has the right attitude to support you in a certain situation. I even work with an inner advisory board, meaning when I have a difficult decision to make, maybe for my business, like what pricing should I take? I imagine several people sitting around a round table giving me advice in coaching, you would ask, call this circular questions. What would David say in this situation? What would Bill say? In my concrete example, I would have my father, who might really have a very conservative view on things, on my advisory board. I would have a colleague of mine who's working in the same field. I would have my wife, who's a complete cheerleader for me. I might even have my daughter, who's only 9 years old. But I would ask myself, what would they tell you? And my daughter sometimes is very bold and would say, just ask for this price, because if you would get it, I would be able to buy myself a puppet, something like that. And everybody got their own perspectives, and you can just consult people without consulting them, just in an imaginary way. That's also a strategy. Okay, any other questions? And I have one more exercise to go, so maybe we continue. Yeah, embodiment, again, can be very strong. I don't know if you ever tried this. If you're not in a good mood and you don't feel like laughing or smiling, if you try to smile for a longer time, it might happen that you get a little bit happy. And I don't say that this is always working, but it can do something. The body can have an influence on how you feel. So for instance, when I feel really low, I put up some makeup or just some lipstick to get some color in my face, and immediately I feel prettier. Not that this would be important for anyone, but or I would put on my favorite clothes. It gives me something. And also with your body language, with your posture, you can influence the way you feel. So that just a small reminder why you should use an embodiment to quiet your voice. Just do something with your hands, with your feet, just some little micro gesture to support that. Okay. And the last exercise for today is called the consciousness mirror. You might know that there are, or you might feel that there are people who enter the room and you can immediately roll your eyes thinking like, oh no. Sometimes you don't even know why, but people are triggering you. Do you know people like that? Maybe also people in the media, people in your neighborhood, people at work, former co-workers. Do you know people like that who trigger you? Well, if you don't have these people around, you're very lucky. I meet people like that regularly at my work because I work with huge groups. And of course, there's this one or two people that I just don't get along with. So think about 5 characteristics, values, traits of a person that triggers you. And maybe you can share that in the chat. So for me, people who trigger me are lying. What are characteristics of people that trigger you? Arrogant. What else? Know-it-all. Show-offs. People who have to be the center of attention. What else? Trying to make themselves look good. I once worked with a guy who actually physically patted himself on the back. Okay, there is a scale, right? There are people, and I'm giving you like tips what we can do to be more confident. So I think embodiment to do this sometimes might be good for some people, but on the other hand, at the other hand of the scale, it might be really too much. At other expense, very domineering, yelling, aggressive, arrogant, egoistical, narcissistic. Okay, yeah, definitely, I'm in for that. Often it's family. They just know how to push our buttons. Yeah, and Charlotte N., can you be more precise? What is it? How can they push your buttons? What is the character trait that makes you get triggered by them? Poor choice of words. What else? Dismissive. Come on, you can just type it in. No judgment here. Nasty attitude, judgmental. So now that you collected, oh, they want to talk and not listen. Oh, that's a classic, yes. So if you think of the complete opposite of the person that is triggering you. So what is the opposite of being aggressive? Would that be soft? And now you really have to think about, if you write down your 5 words, what is the complete opposite? And for one person, the opposite of aggressive could be soft, and for another person, it could be something else. Don't know when to finish a thought, just keep talking. So the opposite would be the person does know when to finish a thought and stops talking, right? Concise. I think I don't know this word. Is that the opposite, or is that a trigger trait? It's the opposite of keep talking. Thank you, Bill. See, I'm learning here. People who are open to possibilities, who hear you and ask intelligent questions. Think about your trigger trait. What is the complete opposite? Inclusive. Asking people who don't always speak if they have anything to say. Wow, nice. Yeah, and if you look at the opposite, Andrea, are you a person who is open to possibilities? And do you ask intelligent questions? Might that be the case? And Nancy, are you inclusive? And Bill, are you concise, as I just learned? And okay, Bill, I don't see you. I just have a few videos here on the screen. I like to think so most of the time. Yes. And this is the reason, might be a reason why people who trigger us because they're the complete opposite of what we are. So number 2 is who we are. And if somebody is the complete opposite, it's just not what we appreciate. They don't share our values. So we have 2 more steps to go in this exercise. And the third one is, imagine you are too inclusive. You were asking people who don't speak like all the time. And you would, what else do we have here? You would be overly concise. You would be asking only intelligent questions. So what would be the exaggeration of your positive traits? What would happen if you would be overly inclusive? And I'm asking you because imagine a scale again, right? And here's somebody who's always talking, and here's somebody who's listening, trying to listen, to understand and not to answer. Sometimes we try to go the other direction just to not become the monster that we don't like. So that we go to the other extreme, and the consequence would be if you let other people talk, that you will mute yourself, that you will not talk at all. So you become your very own monster, your own trigger to other people. If I would always try to include people because they don't speak up, I might overwhelm them because they don't want to say something right now, right? If I would like say, hey, what do you want to say? What do you want to say? So sometimes it might be that we become monsters for other people and that we exaggerate our home traits, so to say, so much that we become monsters for others, or that we become monsters to ourselves. So here we go. The solution, number 4, would be we would take a very, very low dose of our monster and sprinkle it on top of ourselves. The thing is that people who trigger us might be having something that we don't have. Okay, I'm going to scroll up to your trigger traits. Know-it-all, arrogant, show-offs. So a know-it-all is maybe a person that has an opinion about everything. Also the things that they should not have an opinion about because they don't know it. What could be an advantage of being a know-it-all? The advantage could be visibility. The advantage could be that you have more attention from other people and no self-doubt. Exactly. I don't think that I don't know anything. I just say it. So if you would think about sprinkling a little bit of know-it-all on top of yourself, and I just I'm going to take a look who wrote that. How could you be? There's so much in the chat. I'm grateful that you share so much, but here I have it. It was Bill. Bill, how can you be a little bit of a know-it-all? I can think about something. Saying something when you don't really have deep knowledge about things. Could you do that? Could you imagine to do that in the future?
To be honest, no.
Who can help Bill out? How can you know it all, be a know-it-all a little tiny bit? How can you be like that? What action would you need to take?
You would have to learn by getting trained, and sometimes by speaking out. It's a form of learning.
I would go with the second, to speak out, just to try it and to see how the reactions are. And that might give you the confidence to do it more in the future. Not saying that you should be a know-it-all because you don't like that, and that wouldn't be you, but just to train to gain maybe a little bit more attention by others.
So
You would
I
need to
think
be
I think I've
Sorry.
done this a little bit before. So, you know, if I had a team meeting and I had an idea,
Yes.
but I wanted other people to give me their ideas, I kind of went into the meeting with the idea of I'm going to lay out my idea, and basically I'm going to act like this is the way we're going to go. And
Yes.
you know, even if there was points that I was questioning myself, I would say, I think we should go in this direction. I think we should go in this direction. I think we should go in this direction. And eventually people in the team would go, well, you know, overall it looks fine. But point number 2, I'm afraid that this is going to happen. And then we would get into a discussion about that point. So I guess I can be a know-it-all if I have to be, you know, when it comes to, you know, like a team meeting or something like that.
Exactly. And if you really want to be precise, just take a Post-it and write down the exact situation when you want to do this. Something like, the next time I'm sitting in a meeting and I have this feeling I want to contribute with an idea, even though I don't know if the idea is perfect, I'm just going to do it. You can write that down. And let me tell you about my trigger traits. One is lazy. So my former colleague used to be super lazy. That's how I perceived him. I was like working hard, not taking a break. He was taking 7 breaks a day, because I counted, to smoke for a few minutes. And I couldn't imagine how can he do it? And I realized that he is not putting the files away. He just knew everything in his head. He didn't write emails a lot with the clients. He just communicated via phone, which is not very beneficial if you work in a team and you need to share information. But this was his way to being lazy. He didn't need to work so much. He could save time. So I was thinking, how can I be a little bit lazy? This is not me. I always work hard. And then I thought about, okay, email communication. When I communicate an email, I write very long mails. I try to inform people and give some extra information just to be super professional. And I figured I don't need to do this. If people have more questions, they can ask me and send an email back saying, Ellen, can you elaborate on this point? And then I can give them the information. But I could save time if I don't write so much. So being lazy for me was being more effective. So I reframed it even, right? So I don't have to think, how can I be more lazy? I thought about how can I be more effective to be able to not work as much. Another thing that I did, and that was my strategy, I was looking for concrete ways to learn from my monsters, was every time somebody was walking down the hallway and I saw people, I got up because I was trained in the hotel industry and I was asking, who are you looking for? Can I help you? So I stopped doing that and let people come to me, asking me to find their way around or if they were looking for a person. So I can be more effective. And this should be the learning here, that you can be, you can learn from your trigger, from your monster. Can you imagine to do that? Did you find any trait where you think I can adapt a little tiny bit and I can be better, more successful? So yes, I'm sharing my screen again. Yeah, and there's Teal Swan. She says that people who trigger us to feel negative emotion are messengers. They are messengers for the unhealed parts of our being. You don't have to agree with that, but sometimes I feel there's a little truth in that people who trigger us have something that we do not have. And maybe sometimes we envy them a little bit for that. Because if you think about the advantages of being in a certain kind of way, they might be nice or help you. Oops, yes, we're already done. Do you have any more questions? And otherwise, I would like to ask you to share your feedback. You can put a plus for something that you really liked, a minus, what you would like to have differently. And if you really want to be precise, you can add your why. And yeah, it was a pleasure to be here today and to really work with you. And thank you so much that you unmuted yourself, that you contributed. And I'm sure that the others appreciated that a lot, because this way we could go through the exercises, not theoretically, but really practically, and take something away here. Yep. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I think I'm also in the PSG group. And yeah, leave your feedback in the chat so I know what kind of job I did today. And I'm going to hand it over to David.
Well, it's very easy answer, Ellen. You did a wonderful job, and thank you. The exercises provided, oh, thank you. Wonderful insight, gave us a little bit of a lesson. So really kind of, I think, emphasizes the points a bit more rather than just talking about the points. We get to show how we can use them. And I know certainly for anyone who's interested in speaking with you or learning your coaching, it can certainly be more involved than what we talked about today, but it gave us nice samples. So thank you very much. And in addition to your slide, I did post your contact information in chat. And everyone, I will download the chat later as well, post that on our website in the section called Meeting Presentation Documents. If you need the chat right now, in the upper left corner of the screen, you'll see a GoToMeeting logo. And when you click on that, a drop-down menu shows up, and one of the items is to download the chat, so you're welcome to that as well. In just a few minutes, we will be officially wrapped up, but I'll leave the session open for anyone who wants to hang around and chit-chat about whatever you want to chit-chat about. But before that, I want to let you know what's coming up and who's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Next week, career coach Melanie Woods will be here. Melanie Woods is a coach we got introduced to. She's actually from Houston, Texas. And so one nice silver lining about this virtual meeting stuff is we've been able to have some members, but also some presenters who are outside of the Princeton area and normally would not be able to present to us. So Melanie Woods will be here to talk about how recruiters use LinkedIn Recruiter. You and I don't use LinkedIn Recruiter unless you are a recruiter. It's their super tool that they use to get access to all the LinkedIn data that we have. So if we learn better how they're using LinkedIn Recruiter, we can better position our own LinkedIn profile. So next week, October 22nd, Melanie Woods will talk about LinkedIn Recruiter. And then the following week, October 29th, Paul Sakala will be here to talk about background checks and reference checks, what employers are learning about you. Paul is also a career coach, and he'll be talking about background and reference checks. So if you're wondering what information hiring managers may be interested in, he will be talking about that as well. Other groups that are happening tomorrow morning. The Career Support Group will be meeting at 8:30 in the morning. George Pace will be the presenter. How to keep pace in a post-COVID world. So George has a lot of insight in job search, artificial intelligence, and other areas, and he will talk about how to keep pace in a virtual world, post-COVID world. So that's tomorrow morning, careersupportgroup.org, careersupportgroup.org to get the connection information. Also, our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, meets every Monday morning at 10:30 in the morning, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz, kudos on their new website. And PSG of Morris County meets every Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning, psgmc.org, psgmc.org. So once again, thank you so much, Ellen. Appreciate your continued support and friendship to PSG of Mercer County. And until we get to see everybody either virtually or in person soon, I will simply say, bye, everybody.